A deal at the UN Climate Summit looked more likely by the end of Thursday, following a frantic day of behind-the-scenes diplomacy. China signalled concessions on monitoring of emission curbs, and the US said it would commit money for developing countries. But leaders will have to make big choices when they meet today. Chinese Premier Wen Jiabao will address the conference and has promised that China would move forward the agenda of climate negotiations. But a leaked document from the UN Climate Conference indicates the best deal likely from Copenhagen will not keep the temperature rise below 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Even if countries implement their biggest pledges, a rise of 5.4 Fahrenheit is indicated, a rise that many environmentalists say would be disastrous. And as the Copenhagen talks continued, China announced plans to invest more than $400 billion in environmental protection over 5 years from 2011 as the country battles widespread pollution. Wu Xiaoqing, deputy head of the Environmental Protection Ministry, said a third of the overall investment would go towards operating costs of pollution control facilities. China, the world's biggest carbon polluter, has pledged to reduce carbon emissions per unit of gross domestic product by 40 to 45% by 2020, based on 2005 levels. But experts say its emissions could still double given economic growth projections. A top Chinese official has called for efforts to quickly resume stalled talks on ending North Korea's nuclear programs, while Washington said any future disarmament deal will have to address Pyongyang's uranium enrichment program. Chinese Vice President Xi Jinping also said his country wants to work closely with South Korea to advance the denuclearization process on the Korean peninsula. Xi made the comments during his talks with South Korean President Lee Myung-bak in Seoul. South Korea has asked Beijing to play a more active role to get North Korea to abandon its nuclear programs and rejoin the disarmament talks that also involve China, South Korea, Russia and Japan and the US. China is widely seen as the country with the most clout with Pyongyang, as it is North Korea's biggest benefactor and longtime communist ally. An American automotive engineer has been detained in China for more than a year on accusations he misused trade secrets, the latest case of secrecy laws being used against an American in China. The US Embassy says Hu Zhicheng, a prize-winning designer of industrial catalysts to control auto emissions, has had letters from his family censored and has been denied reading materials during his detention in the port city of Tianjin. US officials say investigators have threatened Hu with multi-million-dollar fines unless he gives the rights to his US-registered patent to a former business partner in Tianjin. Another China-born naturalized American geologist, Feng Xue, disappeared into custody 2 years ago and has been put on trial for passing on state secrets. More Chinese residents are unhappy about inflation, with nearly half of them saying prices are too high and unacceptable. That's according to a recently completed survey just carried out by the People's Bank of China. The central bank said the proportion of those concerned by higher prices had risen to 47%, up from 45% 3 months earlier. China's consumer prices rose 0.6% in November, over a year earlier, after 9 straight months of decline. The survey also showed that demand for loans in the country was falling. The average price of pre-construction homes inside Beijing's 4th Ring Road now stands at a staggering $3,000 per square metre. That's according to the Beijing Bureau of Statistics. Figures reveal that nearly 20 million square metres of commercial homes were sold from January to November this year, up 110% year on year. The number of apartments sold between January and November is more than 140,000, surpassing last year's figure of 94,000. The price of second-hand residential apartments also reached a new high, with a 1% increase on the price index compared with the same period last year. The roaring housing price is partly due to the preferential policy following the drive to reverse the slump in the domestic market last year. Talks are underway to form a joint venture aimed at turning the famous Shaolin monastery into a money-spinning mega-brand. The Beijing News reports that China Travel Service is holding talks with the city government in Henan province, where the monastery is based, to form the joint venture. The Dongfeng city government said that no formal contract has been signed, and the monastery itself would not be part of the joint venture's assets. Last year, the monastery took $50 million in revenue from ticket sales alone. Dongfeng's attempts to cash in on the site have have prompted widespread criticism in China. Shaolin Monastery is the 1,500-year-old birthplace of Chinese Kung Fu and Zen Buddhism. It has developed into both a popular tourist destination and a brand for businesses ranging from film production to medicinal products. And finally, 10 giant panda cubs will be on display at the Shanghai World Expo next year at the city's zoos, giving tens of millions of Chinese and foreign visitors a glimpse at the highly endangered species. 6 females and 4 males will arrive in Shanghai in January and spend 6 months at the Shanghai zoos and 6 months at the Wild Zoo of Shanghai. All the pandas were born at the country's main panda research base in Sichuan province after the May 2008 earthquake that killed or left missing nearly 90,000 people. The expo is due to begin on May 1st and run for 6 months and is expected to draw 70 million visitors, most of them Chinese. And that's the BON News headlines for now, but we'll be back with more news after this.